Welcome to Little Victories, the self-help comedy podcast that proves success isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Hosted by fast-talking firecracker Richie DeFrisco and the ever-sly Pat the Cat Murray with the Pat Facts. This is Little Victories.
Welcome back to the Little Victories podcast. Your host, Richie D. My co-host. What's your name again?
Pat the Cat.
That's Pat the Cat, ladies and gentlemen, with the Pat Facts. Today, we're dressed up. We have an amazing guest that is the founder of a very substantial organization that does a lot more than most to protect animal rights of all, from the horse carriages to glue traps to you name it. They do everything, and they spend a lot of their significant portion of their time is in City Hall fighting for legislation. It is an honor to have this person. We're so lucky to have her, the founder of Voter for Animal Rights. Ladies and gentlemen, Allie Taylor.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Oh, you're gonna let me go first? Wow, what a pleasant surprise.
But you can't take 5 minutes to ask a question.
Well,
it's got to be quick.
I'll take 15. So we have with us Allie Taylor, the founder of Voters for Animal Rights. Today we're diving into the world of animal rights and what it really means and why it's more important now than ever. So first question for you, Allie. How did you get involved with this movement? Why do animals mean so much to you?
So I think it was after college that I saw a movie it was a documentary about how food is produced. And there was a very graphic scene where they showed how a cow is processed, from how it's slaughtered to how this is going to be very graphic, how they remove their hooves, how they skin the animals. And it was absolutely horrifying to me. And, of course, growing up, that your food comes from animals. But this documentary in particular painted a very graphic and real look at the suffering that goes on inside the food system. And so from there, that was where I had my light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely what I want to work on. I came from a political background. I'd worked on a lot of different electoral campaigns. And then I went to be a staffer at the New York State Senate, actually in Queens. And I became pretty disillusioned, like many people do when they start working for government, and how slow things moved and just how petty politics are. And I said, if I'm going to stay in this field, I want to work on issues that I really care about, and that was animal rights. And so from there, I went and worked for an organization for about 5 years where I worked on the New York City horse carriage ban. And when it became pretty clear that we weren't going to win, I saw that we had built up an incredible block of voters who cared a lot about animal issues and voted on them, meaning they would decide whether or not to support a candidate based on their stance on animal rights. And so I saw a need for a citywide and a statewide organization that could take on a range of public policy issues, and that by channeling our energy not just towards policy changes, but towards electing good people who could enact those changes, we could be really effective. And so I started Voters for Animal Rights in 2016. We are a 501c4 organization, which is different from most animal nonprofits. Most of the ones that you know of are 501c3s. As a 501c4, we're actually a political org. And that means that we can spend more time and funds on lobbying, and we can electioneer, meaning we can endorse candidates or oppose candidates, and we can help get out the vote for them or try to, stop the opposite candidate from getting elected. And that's really where we're different from other groups, and it's where we have most of our leverage. That was a really long answer to your question, but yes.
No, that's perfect. But without your organization, things don't get done. We just had a conversation outside before we walked into the studio. And, I had said the pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah.
Everything comes down to legislation. votes matter.
Mm-hmm.
The written law matters. And as much as we want to do, it's great. Small organizations, they do so much. Again, I want to give a shout out to Bronx Committee Cats, Tanya, Gina, and the whole staff over there. They're a wonderful group. They do so much. I'm looking forward to doing a video with you guys soon. But your level, so it's a
501c4.
501c4. Specifically, you're dealing with legislation, you're dealing with lobbyists, etc. And really, it comes down to funding for the city, etc., where that funding is allocated. And you're fully aware of the entire process, where anyone that's not really full-time in politics is not aware of legitimately within the city how long things take. Because for me, from on the semi-outside, even though I am, is that my question is, the horses are still on the street.
Yes.
But that was an issue how long ago? Get them off the street. In
Since
my
the
mind,
early 80s, there's been people fighting to pass a law to prohibit horse carriages in the city.
They
The 80s.
they have no business being on city blocks. The city has changed. We have populated dramatically in all 5 of the boroughs. And there's practically almost no room left for anybody to be here because that's how on top of each other we are. Those horses have no business being, but it's not just the horses. I just want to reference this. If you go to it's the website that you have that, and people can actually check on this link, right? So you on your website.
It's vfar.org. Yes.
Okay, and then there's also this link that you can go straight halfway down, and this is great that you have this this is clean, and it says there's a link there that says check out our 2026 legislative policy and budget agenda here, and then you can see all of the things that her organization is working on right now, because it's a lot.
And I think the key word that you used there was the money, right? So a lot of the 501c3 organizations, they're nonprofits, right?
Yes.
And so there's a certain way in which those organizations are structured, how they can spend their money.
Right.
What makes yours specific, and I think this is the important part behind it, is that you can use that money to put people in a position of power that will further the positive agenda that comes from animal rights.
Exactly.
So my question for you, and then lobbying also is the key word there, right? That's where all the handshakes are made and the millions of dollars are passed around. From your political background and knowledge and education, how has that helped you while running the organization to actually get those deals made, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to clarify is, you talked about millions of dollars. VFAR is tiny. We operate on $100,000 a year, which is not a very big budget, and we don't have any paid staff. I do this as a passion project. Up until very recently, I had a day job. So I think there's 2 takeaways that can come from that. And one is that it doesn't take a huge amount of resources to do the work that we're doing. It takes being sharp about how you're spending those resources and how you're spending your time as well. And also having people around you who know what they're doing. Politics is all about building relationships and having a good rapport with people, having trust among them. And I think that is where the animal rights movement falls short, and it's where VFAR tries to kind of pick up the slack. There are plenty of animal organizations within New York State, but there's shockingly only maybe a handful of us that are 501c4s that are doing this work. It's surprising to me that being in New York City, that VFAR is one of the only ones who are doing this. And I am always surprised that some of the big national groups are not investing more in New York City, and they're not investing more into political action, because we've been able to do a lot with very little in New York City. For example, the foie gras ban. That was one that VFAR led the campaign to pass that in the city council. We didn't have paid lobbyists at that time. This is 2019. We didn't have an advertising budget, but we had good people who knew the policy really well, and we had people who knew how to maneuver within the city council to get that done. We certainly didn't have the resources that the foie gras industry has, right? That's a multi-million-dollar industry that has their own lobbyists and their own lawyers and an endless amount of resources to continue to defend a really horrific practice. But I think that's a really good example of an issue where if you are applying the right levers and using your resources in the right way at the right time, you can be really effective for animals.
So now I got excited because you were close to getting past that, and she just knocked it.
Well, what happened is we passed it in the New York City Council in 2019, and then it went into law. It had a 3-year effective date, which is a concession that we had to give in order to get the law passed. And it went into effect in 2022. And then the foie gras farmers or foie gras producers sued the city of New York. And then the state of New York sued the city of New York. I know it's very confusing. And the state of New York, under Governor Kathy Hochul, their Department of Ag and Markets claims that because the New York City law will disproportionately affect farms that are hundreds of miles away, that the law cannot be enacted. Now, that's absolute nonsense.
So I wanted to specify, especially, and we're going to be referring back to your website quite a lot because you just have a lot of information and resources there. Your organization specifically focuses on New York, right?
We cover New York City and New York State.
New York City and New York State.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beginning of how we start to understand the problem because you're seeking to establish laws for animal rights, to inform and to help advocates even run for political office. Mm-hmm. Just like in that example, you showed that the state sued the city.
Yeah.
The legislation that you're advocating for and passing, how does that speak to the effect that it has on a national scale?
That's a great question. So after the New York City foie gras ban passed, we saw numerous other cities start to create their own campaigns. And right now, I believe there's campaigns in Colorado, there's campaigns in Portland, Pittsburgh passed their own foie gras ban. New York City has such an influence and such a validation for other cities that whatever we do here, people say, oh, well, New York City did it. Now we have to do it. They follow it. One of the drawbacks to it, interestingly, was that we put the foie gras industry on alert, right? When we passed the law in New York City, the foie gras industry didn't see it coming. We were really stealth about our lobbying. Like I said, we didn't do any advertising about it.
So they didn't know you were talking about it.
They didn't. I mean, they knew we had introduced a bill, but they just figured, who are these little guys? They're not going to get anything done with this.
And
by the time we had gotten to a majority in the city council who were supporting the bill and the bill was about to pass, there was nothing they could do about it.
It's like a ball punch.
And what is the foie gras? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's they take the goose,
mm-hmm.
they
or
force
duck.
Duck, and they force feed it
Mm-hmm.
to a point in which they can't function, and then they cut the head off. And what's
so what they do is they stick either a metal or a plastic pole down the throat of a duck or a goose multiple times per day for multiple weeks, and they're intentionally trying to make the liver grow to a size where it becomes diseased. That's what foie gras is.
It's the diseased liver of...
It's diseased liver of a duck or a goose. And so once that process is completed, then they slaughter the ducks. And there's about 300,000 ducks and geese that are killed every year in the 2 foie gras farms that are in upstate New York.
I spoke with you about the side too, because, and I'm going to reference Gina, because I had mentioned Gina from Bronx Committee Cats. And I talk to her all the time. I love her. And, because of the effort that these organizations put forward, rescuing cats, there's a lot of hardship. They rescue a cat, they spend all this money. A cat passes because they deal with a lot. You have to come to a point now for you to be successful in your role. You almost like have to, because even like hearing about this gets me upset.
I know.
So, in order for you to be in your role, it's business, and you have to focus on that, because if you let too many of these things get to you, it's impossible. It's impossible.
Yes. You have to have a pretty thick, callous to work on this stuff every day. But the way I see it is that if we are not moving forward, we're moving backwards. And we're not helping any animals by spending time sitting in our feelings. And I know that sounds really callous, but that's what works for me. And I completely understand that ethos may not work for others. But yeah, you get kind of numb to it, you know?
And
you have to.
Yeah, I mean, because specifically as you talk about foie gras, like that just seems it's so barbaric in the nature of it, and I feel like because it sounds fancy, ooh, foie gras, like, oh, it must be good.
Yeah.
You know, someone sees it on the menu, they don't even know what they're ordering, right? You're ordering diseased goose liver, right? There's the bigger kind of debate that goes on, I think, every day between how we eat, and then, you know, the way that we choose, whether it's being an omnivore, eating whatever's put in front of you, being a vegan, being a vegetarian, carnivore diet, seafood, pescatarian, all these different, you know, verbiages and adages.
You always got to talk about food. Go ahead.
Well,
keep
it's
going.
it's a
Always
big thing.
food
I mean,
with you.
You know, one of the categories that you advocate for is, you know, how animals are used for food, and I think that, you know, we're not going to change the, you know, the perspective of, you know, the food practices overnight, but thinking back to how New York City and the New York State can kind of lead the nation in some of these policies, I think that there should be some type of, you know, renewal or oversight between going back to how you first watched the documentary. What documentary was that, by the way?
I was just going to ask that
Oh.
question.
Was that Food Inc.?
FedEx?
Yes, it was Food
It was
Inc.
Food Inc., yeah.
Food Inc.
Yeah.
So
So-
it was Food Inc. and the other one was Fed Up. Were the two
There's
that I
yeah,
watched.
there's
Those were
another
the
one.
two that were
Yeah.
streaming at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think a lot of people have that similar kind of aha moment of like, wow, this
Yeah.
is really what it is, you know. But then you at least did more than most and took action. So that's very commendable. I mean, there are so many different avenues.
I want to ask one question
Yeah.
though, quickly. You've started this a decade ago, but you have serious experience, and the time you put in, I don't know the full scope of your work with politics, but you've obviously were on top of it from the very beginning, and picked up these skills, which enabled you to get to this level. Because it's not easy. Dealing with legal documents all day long, it's a lot.
Well, I have a good team, so
It's everything.
I'm not an attorney, but we work with, you know, we work with people who are great at writing bill language. We work with a number of organizations at the state and national level that do have the resources to put their eyes on a document and make sure that the bill that we're working on is sound. And
Essentially, your role is not different from what I do full time. Is you're a project manager. It's essentially what you do, but you take care of everything, and you're savvy. But you're making sure it's the nonstop all day long. Your email probably goes up 1,000 times a day, most likely. I want to know from the time you started this something. I mean, you're proud of all of it, and you should be.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. What was like a highlight? Where it's like, this was.
What was your victory?
I mean, the foie gras ban, I think, was definitely our proudest accomplishment to date. About a month ago, the appellate division finally ruled in our favor on the foie gras ban. We've been fighting this in court since 2022, and I have been very shocked at how bad our judges are in New York at looking at this case, because to us it seems so obvious that New York City should be allowed to pass and enforce its own laws, right? It should not be a question that Governor Hochul and the Department of Ag and Markets can just sue the city because they don't like a law that we passed. That's wild, right? Think about what precedents that would set if she could just sue our city when she doesn't like something that the New York City Council or Mamdani is doing. It doesn't make any sense.
Within the city.
Yes.
They're not even, it's not like they're next door.
Right. But judge after judge got this wrong. And then finally, last month, the appellate division unanimously ruled in our favor. And it was a pretty, like scathing rebuke of what the state of New York was trying to do. So that was a huge victory. Now, fast forward to this past Monday, Governor Hochul appealed again. So now we're going to have to go back to court, and this thing is going to drag out months or years. But we had that we had that little victory, that glimmer of hope when the Court of Appeals ruled in our favor. So that was exciting. I think the other big one was when we did the guinea pig sales ban in New York City. So during the pandemic, there was a guinea pig crisis, and that people were buying guinea pigs and then realizing that they're incredibly difficult to care for. And they're very difficult to spay neuter. There's very few veterinarians who will even do spay neuter of guinea pigs because they don't have the experience doing it. And they breed. And so New York City Animal Care Centers started to see, like, I think it was up to 1,500 guinea pigs in 1 year were being surrendered to the city shelters. And then city parks were finding that people were dumping guinea pigs in the parks. People were leaving them in boxes outside of trash cans. People were leaving them in boxes in their lobby. It got really out of control. And so animal care centers, said, look, can you guys help us? Like, we don't have the resources to house thousands of guinea pigs, and we certainly don't have that many adoptive homes to get them out to. So we worked with the city council to pass a law that prohibits the sale of guinea pigs in pet stores. And, we did get some pushback from folks saying, like, guinea pigs, like, this is what you're working on during COVID. Why is this a priority? And so we had to do a lot of work to explain that this isn't just affecting the guinea pigs. This is also having an enormous effect on the city animal shelter staff, right? They're already dealing with thousands and thousands of dogs and cats and rabbits who are coming through their door every year. And on top of that, now you're adding 1,200 guinea pigs. It became a human issue as well as an animal issue as well. And I think that that's where we won. So that bill passed, and it's been incredibly successful. There's been a 70% decrease in the number of guinea pigs that have been surrendered to animal care centers of New York City. So really glad that one passed, and we hope to see more similar legislation coming up.
You're good.
So
thanks.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there, is that one of the obstacles you have is educating people on why some of the goals and objectives you have are important. And I'm just thinking back to, we had it was third grade. Roxy was the class guinea pig, right?
Oh gosh.
We're
going back to third grade.
We're going back
now?
to third grade.
No,
We're
but
going back
classroom
to
pets is a good
so
topic.
classroom
because-
pets.
yeah.
I mean, these are things like when you say banning the sale of guinea pigs in pet stores, it doesn't take away from the fact that there's already thousands of guinea pigs that are being up for adoption. But between vets and animal shelters, we only think cats and dogs. Right. So when we introduce rabbits and guinea pigs and other reptiles, right, people tend to forget about those things. And so I'm glad you touched on that. So because now I'm thinking back, and again, another focus you have is animal used for entertainment.
Right.
Great memories as a kid, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey
gosh.
Circus.
Yeah.
But I can, I'm interested to see, because it's like they had tigers and elephants, and
I remember from when I was a child going to the same
and
shows.
still have it. So kind of, and now the state of the circus is, but now what were some of the things that you were trying to bring to light in regard to how they were treated, in that setting?
So with the circus ban, that was 2017 when that passed in the New York City Council. And that was a bill that had been brought up time and time again and failed repeatedly. But I think that advocates did a really good job in the public education aspect of the circus, and that people started to realize, like, hey, tigers aren't domestic animals. Elephants walk hundreds of miles a day in the wild. The idea that we would throw them into a ring with thousands of screaming children, flames, lights, and think that that is acceptable, people woke up to be like, oh yeah, that's really not cool. And so I think public education there was really key. And then, of course, Ringling Brothers voluntarily decided to stop using animals in their circus because I think they probably started to notice that it was affecting their bottom line, and I think they could see the writing on the wall that either they cooperate or more and more cities and
Probably
states
not
are gonna
empathy.
pass
No
these
one
down.
has, with people with money. There's no empathy. It's about the number,
Right.
And they got to hit these numbers.
So it wasn't much about their concern for the
Never
welfare
is.
of the animals, but it was
It's
more because it
always
was going to
about-
cost them more
No.
to maybe fight to keep them.
They
in
were
there.
losing.
Yeah,
Probably.
okay.
It's always
Yeah.
about money. It's always the case when you deal with corporations like this. It's just, I like me. I'm an emotional guy, so it's like I
Yeah.
want to take these people that do these things and cancel a bill from passing and everything, and I'm gonna say, okay, no problem. Take you and everybody else that gave it a hard time with this bill, have them hang out there for 1 week, 2 days, 1 day, and let them see what goes on. Let them really take it in, and then let them make a human decision after that. But they're so detached from everything. It's hard to not be emotional about this stuff because it's like, make it make sense. You know that's wrong. It's terrible. It's like when they're scrolling and organizations will put that and they'll say sensitive content. Oh, everybody. And I'll include myself. I can't say everybody, but everybody. I don't want to see that. It's too much. It's a lot. It's a lot to see. Like, I don't want to see that right now. But it exists, so it's almost like not correct to be like, oh, I don't want to see it because it's real and it's kind of, messed up to sit there and say I don't want to see that. But it's a lot for us to take in. What's the hardest time you're having now on working on something? Well, I have two questions, but I want to ask that one first.
One of the bills that we're working on now is a state bill that would prohibit industrial octopus farming.
Octopus farming.
And that has proven to be more difficult than we expected because it doesn't exist yet anywhere in the United States.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of this.
Right?
Yeah.
So the octopus that is sold in restaurants and grocery stores, that is wild caught octopus, mostly from off the coast of Morocco, Portugal, Spain, China. It isn't farmed octopus. There is an international corporation who has been doing a ton of research and development to make industrial octopus farming a thing, which is incredibly complicated because, for one, you need 5 pounds of meat fed to an octopus in order to produce 1 pound of octopus meat because they're carnivorous. They're also not good breeders at all. They die after they give birth typically. But nevertheless, if somebody thinks that they can make money off of animals, they will figure out a way to do it. And so they've been doing the R&D to basically figure out how do you alter the biology of octopus to raise them in captivity, fatten them, and slaughter them en masse at the factory farming scale, the same way that they do with cows, pigs, chickens, and other animals that are suffering on factory farms. So we propose legislation that would preemptively say, we don't want this coming to New York State. And we got pushback from legislators saying, with everything we have to get done, why are you trying to ban something that isn't a thing yet? And what we have had to spend a lot of time trying to explain to them is that once something has an economy, it is nearly impossible to make any type of changes to it. Folks have been trying to make changes to our food system for decades, right? But it is so embedded in the fabric of society and in New York State's economy, right? Like, look at the dairy industry, that there's been little to no progress at all on getting, farms to change their animal welfare standards, their the way that they treat their employees. It's incredibly difficult. But if we can prevent a practice from ever coming to New York State in the first place, we can prevent billions of animals from ever being born.
Because almost like once they get in, now it's harder.
Exactly.
And you're doing something that a lot of bureaucrats don't, which is like, you're thinking of the future in the sense that it's like to prevent a problem before it even occurs, because so much of the legislation that you're advocating for right now has to do with adjusting institutions that have been operating for decades and now in the millions or billions of dollars. With seafood specifically, I think of, and because we were on the topic of documentaries, the two that really opened my eyes were Blackfish and The Cove, right? So Blackfish saw the derailing of SeaWorld, right? How they're no longer active because of the way that they treated orcas, killer whales. And then the Cove was really, it was a bit of a tough watch because it was essentially, just the capturing and mass slaughter of dolphins. And I don't think that this should be a precursor to it, but I think an added element to the octopus example is that between octopuses and dolphins, these are very intelligent creatures.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, more so than, let's say, the cow, but I would argue that shouldn't be the case, but it should be another level of analysis when you're doing these things, right? Because for the Cove to even get made, those people were breaking laws left and right. They were sneaking and right, but it finally showed kind of what was going on. And then from even you just telling now about the octopus, I'd never heard of that, octopus farming, and it seems ridiculous to me. But the
whole if you go into it, everything, all of it's ridiculous. In other words, like, you can't stop illegal fishing boats, and they're trying to ban nets, and with those nets, they're sweeping the whole ocean.
Yep.
Half that stuff's dead already by the time it gets to that deck. Now you're depleting the ocean, and it's like, well, that's high risk because everybody on this planet that accommodates us for us to have this experience, it's like the generations after us. It's like me bringing children into this world. It's like it's hard because you want them to have the best life. Their children and their minds are so open and they're imaginative and they see this place as this brilliant, as this beautiful place, right? And whatever we leave to them as an adult, we feel, even though I don't have kids, I still feel, I have nephews, but I feel like, we have a responsibility here. And when you see all of these things that are like, it's like, make it make sense. The obvious, the money, it's like you had said, if there's money to be made, and the thing too is like states, first of all, this country, all countries, are a business. So this country has to make a profit. The city of New York has to make a profit. So the previous administration with the mayor, I think he lost a lot of money. So everything comes down. Where are we? They sit down in that office and they say, how are we going to make profit? So if somebody comes in like the idea that you just said and said, we can make money off of killing all these octopuses. Once it gets in the system and they show profit, they don't care about anything that's related to anything. They just see that number on their spreadsheet and they said, okay, this is looking good, and whatever charts they have in their office. Yep. It's money. But humanity, for us to long term, the kids and everything like that, because that matters more than anything. It's funny. I work in the hospital part time, in the emergency room, and it had an effect on me in a lot of ways. I hate it in there, but there's something that really resonates with you, and that is the human experience really hits me there, because you have patients with nobody, and then you have patients where you see the love from their family members. And that's the moments of like, you know what, we're all going to end up there. But that really hits me home because that matters more. Yeah. It's like fighting for other things too, like with this studio, et cetera. But so there's got to be a middle ground.
And how do we transfer that emotion to, how people view and interact with animals? This might be a bit of a critical thinking question, but I'm thinking more so about how, the topic of climate change and environmentalism is getting a lot of traction. How could you potentially work with some of those legislative, advantages to kind of tie in the whole aspect of welfare and animal protection?
One more thing on octopus that I just wanted to share as an example is that in Mexico, they actually have started industrial octopus farming, and Mexico is now scrambling to pass legislation to prohibit it, to stop it from going any further. It's going to be difficult because somebody already figured out how to do it, but that's just a great example of why we are trying to preemptively prevent practices from taking hold in New York State.
I'm just interested about one thing, and I don't have actual factual information to back it up, but I've seen it. Doesn't mean it's valid, so I'm questioning. Mexico apparently has been doing a lot. Something with dolphins.
I mean, I honestly don't know too much about it. I'm very focused on New York City, New York State.
No,
so
that's
not
important.
know what's going on.
But again, just to kind of double back to that question, because I think, with, let's say that the octopus farming it could also be very detrimental to the environment.
Of course.
So, again, my question was like, how can you kind of merge those two topics to also
Yeah.
kind of push forward your agenda a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple ways. So there is state level legislation that would provide grants to animal farmers to help them transition to plant-based farming. At the city level and at the state level, there are efforts to reduce meat in public institutions through procurement, meaning public schools, hospitals, jails. I think that is probably the direction that we're going to see in the next few years, right? We've already seen a few steps in New York City with Vegan Fridays, with Meatless Mondays,
And
making plant-based the default option in city-based hospitals. I don't know how effective all these changes will be overall, because the problem is that our food system is not run by little farms.
it's factories.
It's factory farms. It's major corporations like Hormel.
But all of this stuff gets
Purdue,
all of this stuff.
Monsanto.
Yeah, but you don't want
Yeah.
that food.
Yeah.
All of this stuff gets dictated by the Department of Agriculture,
Oh yeah.
which is, I think they're tied to Big Pharma, but that's just me, because everybody's got to make money both ways. So that issue you would be dealing with the Department of Agriculture. Have you dealt with them before?
We have not. I mean, most of our work is limited to city and state topics.
Yeah. But it's important that, we recognize that, we very well could set precedents that,
Yes.
the rest of the country tends to follow. To kind of get more back to the micro of it, on a daily basis, what do you find yourself doing with VFAR just to kind of, push these things along?
Sure. On a daily basis, well, every day is different. And I mean, we have different portfolios that we're working on, right? We have a state level portfolio where our main priority is a bill prohibiting glue traps in state owned and leased buildings. And then we have the octopus bill. So working with our coalition partners and with our lobbyists at the state level to move that legislation, it takes up an enormous amount of my time from January to June, because that's when the legislature is in session. And so if we aren't able to move a bill at all from January to June, we have to start the process over.
The
next
whole
year.
process of a bill, does it work like in construction management, where now your team has to put together the package and then submit it for approval?
So it depends. Once we come up with an idea for a bill, sometimes we'll provide suggested language to the legislature for them to use. But they have a bill drafting division that also does that. So at the city level, they like to write their own bills, right? Like we give them an idea and then their attorneys go back and they know the city charter best and the existing laws best. So they usually want to write it themselves, but that's like real nitty gritty stuff.
For the time that we have left, it was a question I had in my mind. Because even like whatever I can do, I always reach out to Tanya and Gina from Bronx Community Cats. But like somebody like myself, this is a passion project for me, and
Yeah.
I use the podcast as a platform to do that as much as I can, and it will always be that way. This stuff is important to me and my values. And I can't thank the value you add. It's scary how smart you are.
Thank you.
But take a guy forget about a guy like me. Let's take a guy like Pat.
Good guy like Pat, yeah.
I don't know about that. So let's say Pat wants to get involved, doesn't know anything. But obviously all of these smaller organizations, or even your organization, depends, need support. What's your advice for how other people get involved? Is it as simple as voting? Make sure you vote? Or are there more things people can do? Especially now, like money with donations, right, to smaller agencies. Because I donate when I can, as much as I can. This city is impossible to live in. You need 3 jobs now. I'm knocking things over.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you can give to people that want to do more, that will help your organization and all of the other ones that are running and doing a lot of work in the city right now?
It's a great question. Yes, voting is absolutely important. I vote in every single election, every single primary. The more you vote, the more that the candidates see you as a prime voter, and so the more they want to court you. But I mentioned earlier that politics is all about relationships. And the most important thing you can do is build relationships with, if you're in New York City, your New York City council member, and then in the state legislature, your state assembly member and your state senator. Go to events where they are, shake their hand, go to every event that they have so that they start to see that you're an active member of the community, right? Because they know that if you're at those events, you're probably talking to a lot of other people within your community about them. Go to your community board meetings. I know that they're boring. I know that, they can sometimes be very tedious to sit through, but the people that go to community board meetings are the people who are talking to politicians, and that's often the people that they listen to.
And we just spoke about that outside.
Yeah.
Because I went down this road for unfortunate circumstances. It actually turned out to be life. The universe kind of wanted me to have that tool under my belt, is because I learned a lot. A lot of them are boring about people complaining about, well, they blocked my driveway and nonsense. But every now and then you have the district attorney show up, and now you're hearing real conversation about laws.
Right.
And those are 3-hour meetings, sometimes 4. But that's where you also get a huge amount of value from being inside those rooms.
Yeah.
Me and the producer, the French producer, we always have this conversation. And I don't like saying anything nice about him. But the truth is that, I've always admired so much about him. I hope we're not recording this part. But we talk about half the battles showing up. Now, we're artists, especially with guests on the show. We're constantly trying to meet new people and grow our own group. He goes to every event, doesn't matter what borough. I try to make it to every one, but it's like you had said. You have to show up, you have to be present.
Right.
Because you don't know what you're going to miss. It could be a relationship, or it could be anything, like someone came and spoke, or whatever the case was, and you don't want to miss that.
The other way that you can be incredibly impactful for animals, and a lot of people are going to hear this and they're not going to get it, or they're going to disagree, and that's okay, is volunteering for candidates. I think that it is the single best investment that you can make for animals.
Because, you're giving a voice to the voiceless.
Exactly.
The animals can't speak up for themselves.
Right. So it brings you into the circle where you might not have had access before. Same thing with volunteering for candidates. And I have found that some of the best relationships that I have with council members, with members of the state legislature, are because I show up for them, right? I go knock on doors for them. I go hand out flyers for them. I get to know them that way. They see that, when they do the right thing for animals, we come out for them. And it's also a really good way to get to know their staff, because the people who are working on their campaigns are probably going to be the same people who are going to be working on their bills once they get into office. And I definitely do get a lot of pushback from animal advocates being like, why should I give $20 to that candidate? They suck. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. And I try to explain to them, that $20 that I gave that candidate 4 years ago when they were first running in a primary, I now have their cell phone number. You know, I now can meet with them and have honest conversations, and they trust me and they know that I can turn people out, and they come to me for advice. Those are the foundations of starting relationships with decision makers, right? And knocking on doors, it's like torture, right? Canvassing door to door. I think it's torture.
It's torture.
It's boring. You're going up and down stairs. You're talking to people who don't want you knocking on their door, but it's really meaningful to the candidates, and they remember those people who are getting out on the doors for them.
Who's been your biggest champion then, if you have one, whether it be a politician or public figure? If you're
in the state Senate, Jabari Brisport, Mike Gianaris. In the state assembly, I would say Linda Rosenthal, and in the city council, he's a new council member, but he's got incredible potential. Harvey Epstein has been really awesome.
Okay.
I talk a lot to myself. I don't have a lot of friends, and I spent a lot of time by myself, especially in traffic, from going back and forth to Brooklyn. And I had this strange thing days ago when my mind went on this regular tangent about trust, being that it is the single most important thing that we have in every single relationship, professional, romantic. Everything boils down to that one thing, and it's trust. And if you've made it and made all this progress, you've gained significant trust through with your peers and through, the political system. So my before I close out, I for the audience, this is a very powerful episode. I would like whoever's watching to please. You love animals. You have a dog. You just it's important to you. Whatever little things you can do to add value. The account it's
votersforanimalrights.org. As soon as you visit their website, you have the option to subscribe. So subscribe, start getting those emails, those notifications, and get involved.
There are people, especially as Allie is smart as she is, that's championing this stuff, that's doing the work. But if there's something that you want to do and you want to get involved, that there's volunteers needed, small donations to these other organizations, you could reach out to Little Victories. We can verify
The
legitimacy of that, so that you're not just saying, because that's also a question people have. It's like, oh, I don't know what these people are doing. We here at Little Victories, we can verify that. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being
You're
here.
amazing.
Pat, you did a decent job
I try my
today.
best.
I'm proud of you. This is episode
18.
18. This is Voter for Animal Rights.
Thanks again, Allie, for your
Thank
time.
you so much, Allie. And we look forward to seeing you for episode
19.
19. Thank you very much, Allie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more wins and more laughs. Follow us at Little Victories Pod on Instagram so you don't miss a thing.